I'll just leave mine off. But all right, well, we'll go ahead and get started. I had, you've heard this before from me, I've planned to kind of devote today to getting stuff ready for the meeting, but that did not happen. I did go to Auburn and grab some giveaways, so right before all the quarantine stuff happened, I moved everything from my house up to Auburn to our office up there, and then of course we all started working from home. So
that's done.
Got it out of my house, but you know, makes it hard when you need to give stuff away. There's some events that are going to be coming up. There's our VMUG UserCon. They now call it the Midwest Regional VMUG Virtual UserCon. Very long now. That's on March 18th, starting 9 a.m., 10 a.m. our time. Why would they not put it in Eastern? Well, I guess we're technically Midwest.
So that's
kind of combination.
Is that technically instead of the Indy VMUG, or
it's instead of Indy, Chicago, Columbus, I believe, is part of that one, and I don't know, one or two other live one, ones they would have in person that combine that. So it's March 18th from 10 to 4 is when that is. You can, I'll drop a link here in the chat. Oops. And there's a couple other ones if you want to join them, but I'm not going to mention them because they're not local. But we do plan on having our meeting next month. I've been trying to find a sponsor, but I haven't been able to connect with one that's ready to do that in that shorter period, which you'd think for a virtual one they'd be pretty easy to get, but guess not. So that'll be whatever the third Wednesday is, the 17th again. Yeah, it's February, so only 4 weeks until the next one. So March 17th, and we don't have a topic yet, but we'll get something. The EUC day was last week, and the recording is available for that. If you just go to the EUC day page on VMUG's website and register, you'll get a copy of the, they'll send you a link to the recording. So I think it's most everything from a VMware or VMUG standpoint. Well, they do have a Cloud Solutions VMUG on March 11th. Got out there too, but here, so they're all on the VMUG website under the virtual events page. So, all right. As far as VMware goes, I tried to get one of the VMware reps here, but there's been a lot of change on that side, so our contacts aren't the same, and the other ones, I guess it was too late for them to make a commitment for it. So I'm sure there's some announcements there. We already mentioned, and probably everybody else knows about this, but the Pat Gelsinger left as the CEO, went to Intel. But other than that, I'm not sure as far as what VMware updates there would be. So we do know that VMworld will be virtual again this year. They've already mentioned that. Although Pat had mentioned last year that they don't plan to go back to having a full one anyways at this point. But kind of find that hard to believe, but the only thing I can look into on that is maybe he was saying that it won't be the same, maybe not as big of an event, maybe break them up and have smaller ones. I don't know, but didn't make sense to me.
I think everybody's going to mutiny on that. Our industry, International Builder Show, the virtual was such a disaster, they canceled it 12 hours into it. It was supposed to be a week long. They just refunded everybody's money and told everybody sorry.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know I didn't like going with it in San Francisco. Not that I like going to Vegas, but it did work out better than what San Francisco did, because it was like half the cost from a hotel and food standpoint. But from a hotel hotel standpoint, but from a conference standpoint, that was about the same. But so, all right, I think that's all I have. So we're going to turn it over to Nicholas to talk about Security Onion. Nicholas, I don't think we can hear you. I know I can't.
Yeah, I can't neither.
We tested all this earlier. It was working.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay. All right, it was a second mute button. Sorry. All right. Well, good evening, everybody. I guess we have audio working now. So the presentation tonight, getting started with Security Onion. And this is going through, I guess, the agenda for tonight. Quick forward, disclosures, why it's important, some high level, some diagrams, why to implement it, quick overview of the install, and then setting up or some details regarding some setup, quick storage usage history from what I was seeing when I was testing it, a quick keep in mind tool chest, quick suggested readings, demo primer, part 1 and 2, and then a demo, and then questions, and then references. So first and foremost, thank you everybody for your time, and and Dave for the opportunity to present here tonight. So it gave me a good chance to dig into Security Onion a little bit more. It was something that I had studied recently, but definitely not to the level of what I was doing here recently. And if I guess is the font okay? The size? Can everybody read the font? Okay.
Yep.
I can make it bigger or smaller here. So hopefully this presentation will give, I guess, a little bit of inspiration in the cybersecurity arena for at least a couple people here. So the presentation idea that goes out to Bill Kindle for his Markdown presentation in September 2020. So I started on this without not doing the Markdown, but then so that sort of spurred me into that piece. So this is through using that Markdown. And I was using it's called sliding, but it converts it over from Markdown format. So the presentation, I used all these tools to create it. So another inspiration was a recent undergraduate degree in cybersecurity. Quick about me. So I moved, my family here moved to Fort Wayne about 6 years ago. I've been in IT for about 20 years. I do enjoy all aspects of it, from security, hardware, network, storage, OS, database, apps. just about everything. Typically, I gravitate toward free and open source software, but sometimes I have to go with what works, at least personally. It's like VMware, Microsoft, Apple, Cisco, Plex. So some of the things that I typically are using, like CentOS, FreeBSD, FreeNAS, Pfsense. Well, I guess it's TrueNAS now, but GNU Cache, Asterisk, FreeSwitch, Security Onion. So it's a lot of good stuff. So I am somewhat left-brained, just as a heads up. So the presentation doesn't really have a lot of pictures. So the objective tonight was so hopefully everybody can walk away with at least installing Security Onion, at least knowing where to go to get support, some questions, and then begin reviewing some of the out-of-box alerts. Maybe just a little bit more to take it a few steps further. Maybe to know at least where to or what's capable. So it's somewhat like a sales pitch with the sales and engineer there to give some details and stuff. So Security Onion is the focus, but it does encompass a lot of different tools. So a couple of those are going to be briefly discussed. So it does encompass a lot of tools and concepts in general. So when I started this presentation, they were on a previous version. So it was late last year, maybe October, November timeframe. And then they did come out with a new version a couple of months ago, December. So I did sort of rewrite this over the past couple of weeks and then try to integrate as much as I could with the latest version. So hopefully the presentation provides a lot of food for thought. It's definitely not a replacement for reading the documentation. We can do this as interactive if you want. I wasn't exactly sure of everybody's interest area. So there's a lot of material, and we can definitely go in more detail if somebody has questions. And my personal preference or personal experience is through is primarily educational and home use. 35 minutes presentation and about 30-minute demo. So first off, I don't work for Security Onion or Security Onion LLC or any other sources presented during the presentation. Specifically, Security Onion is the only provider or official provider of training, professional services, and hardware appliances. So definitely recommend seeking legal counsel if you're going to be, before you start capturing traffic. Depending on where you're at, government, non-government, it could be illegal, or at least you may need to create certain policies or whatnot that are integrated into your company's, at least your company structure. So some examples, definitely not an inclusive list, but the Wiretap Act, the ECPA, this is going to set out rules of what you can do with the packet capturing and how it could be used for being used like either an investigation or depending on if you're using it to track what somebody might be doing. So the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, that one would definitely apply. The FRE, the PIN Register and Trace Statute, any internal company policies. There might be something already pre-existing that would prohibit you from being able to capture the traffic. So some of the citations are going to be on this previous version, the 1604. So if it's still in here, it should still be valid. They did make a lot of changes, but a lot of the stuff carries over from the 1604. So,
hey, Nicholas, sorry to interrupt. I'm getting a lot of wind noise on your microphone. Maybe swing it up a little bit.
Oh, is it better?
There you go. Thank you.
Okay. If it does get low, let me know. I guess, were there any questions on any of this, or did you hear me okay with all that? Was it good? Okay.
Yeah, it was good.
Okay. So I guess at a high level, why would all of this be important? And so at a high level, if an incident occurred on your network, and this could be your home network, your work, or I guess wherever. This could be like an email malware. Somebody could have been sent some attachments, or could be something, maybe a user clicks on a link or went there to a link based on some other links, or could be shareware, freeware. Maybe they try to download something and install it. Now maybe they had a USB drive that they plugged in to their machine. It could be just somebody sitting in the company that is upset about something, or just wants to just do it for fun, or has some sort of malicious intention. You could potentially have a locally compromised port. Maybe the Wi-Fi is not configured correctly, or it's lower encryption, or you might have an inward dialing termination point. I mean, that might be a little bit old school, but there could be a way that somebody gets in there. There could be a generic networking issue. Something could be not configured correctly. So with any of those, and there's probably a lot more. So the question is, how do you find it, or how would you even know it exists? So some of the tools you might have available, it might be a HIPS, your HIDS, your antivirus. And of course, this would need to be on all the devices. There might be some appliances that may or may not have the capability to be able to put a third-party product on. You might have a NIPS or a NIDS for that network intrusion prevention system or detection. But of course, you would need all the rules there configured. You might be able to go back to your DNS and DHCP logs to be able to track down what sites were visited, or who was given IP addresses. You might have some network ACL logs. That's going to show the to, from. But depending on your subnets, that may or may not exist in those logs. You might have something like Cisco's NetFlow or Intop Argus for the session flow data. You might be able to get some data there. You might have a packet capturing tool, but you would definitely need to have all that set up beforehand. Otherwise, it wouldn't be available for that incident response event. You might also have some host-based logs, either Sysmon or the Windows events. So at a high level, there's definitely a lot of work getting all of that data in one place that you can search across it, pivot, and look, analyze, research, to be able to find any of these things that were, or potentially did or may not have, or you don't, or depending on if an incident did occur. So that's where Security Onion comes in to play. So at a high level, and this slide did get a little bit long, so that's I guess why I put it in quotes. But it's a free and open source Linux distribution for intrusion detection, enterprise security monitoring, and log management. So that's what Security Onion is. So it was started by Doug Burks in 2008. So it's been around a little while. The latest version, this 2.3.21, is about 7.5 gig. Definitely got a lot bigger from the previous versions. It was released late December. So it's based on CentOS 7, and the other option is, and that's if you use the ISO, but you can also use Ubuntu or CentOS 7 with your own or your own install, and they have scripts available. But they do recommend using the ISO. At a high level, I'm not sure what their future plans are with the CentOS restructuring, with RHEL changing some of their licensing piece. So I'm not sure about that as of yet. After you download, make sure you check the hash. And they do have a GPG signature for validation of that as well, just to make sure you have the one that was the one that they issued. So it does need with the minimum requirements that they say is 4 CPUs and 12 gig. So it is a little bit heavy on resource usage. So for the previous versions, as far as I know, version 14.04 was about a gig, released in 2016. It was Ubuntu 14. 16.04, 2 gig, and then 2018. And they did the naming based on the Ubuntu version. So that's how they did it previously. But this new version, the 2.3.0, is a very, very large makeover. So they started it over. So at a high level, it does interjoin many open source projects. So it's not just necessarily one tool, but a compilation of a lot of them. So it does support incident response. It does support easily transition between various tools that are going to be there to allow you to do that research that you need. There's definitely going to be a lot of data overlap between the tools. Some have their strengths and weaknesses, so it depends on how you approach the investigation or just review in general of what may or may not be happening on the network. It's going to support that proactive and reactive postures and also troubleshooting. So if something did happen, you might be able to use the packet captures to troubleshoot an event that may or may not be occurring on the network. So it does provide that visibility into the network because hiding network activity is very difficult. I mean, if a packet's going to be crossing your network, it's going to be there. It's kind of hard to cover that up or delete it unless you also compromise those network devices. So if you already have something in place, it's probably not a plug and play replacement. But if you don't have anything, it would definitely be a good start for a new implementation. So you could create your own NSM, the network security monitoring device, but eventually it would look probably really close to Security Onion, unless you're a well-funded developer, probably, because a lot of the tools that you're going to go to are mainstream open source tools, and Security Onion has already incorporated all of that into their release. So it weaves together. So this is directly from them, from their documentation. It weaves together 3 core functions: full packet capture, the NIDS, HIDS, and analysis tools. So that's the encompassing of everything that Security Onion does. So the full packet capturing does come from it comes from Google's stenographer. So they previously used NetSniff-NG, but with this new release, they did replace that. And they do have a NIDS, and this is a NIDS. It comes up later, but it's not a prevention system. It's just a detection. So they're using, so under the hood they're using Suricata, and this is a rule driven based on IP traffic. And so this product Suricata was released 2010. So they added multi-threading, and it does or it's really similar to Snort in general. So it does use the same signatures. And Suricata can leverage graphic cards for higher performance. So Snort, it was released in '98. Now Cisco purchased it, and they're using it now. And Snort was in the release previously, but it was removed in this newer version. But it might come back after Snort, I think version 3 comes out. So it could be soon for that. So another NIDS that's available. So we have Suricata as that rule driven, and then this new one called, or this additional one called Zeek, and it was previously named Bro, but they decided to rename it. I think the name was based on like a Big Brother kind of thing. And then this one's more of an analysis driven. So it's going to look at the network or the traffic and whatnot, and then find things that are not necessarily a specific rule, but something that may look odd or weird. So it's going to create a lot of logs: con log, DNS log, FTP log, HTTP, SSL, notice, and there's definitely a lot more. So at a high level, you're going to be able to see some rather specific traffic in each of these logs. So there's also a HIDS component, and this one it integrates Wazoo, and this is an open source HIDS for Linux, Windows, and Mac OS. This was a fork from OSSec in 2015. So they updated some encryption, added multi-threaded support, and it also integrates into the Elastic Stack and Splunk and a few more. So also in this is the analysis tools. So this NIDS research, they introduced this new SOC interface or SOC interface. They previously had I forget what the language it was written in, but it was a GUI that directly tied back into the database, and then you had a lot of flexibility of creating some queries and whatnot, and that was called Squeal. So they created this new web-based one. Inside the web interface, there's also a interface for Kibana, and this is an open source data visualization within the Elasticsearch stack. For packet capture analysis, you have Wireshark, Network Miner, and CatMe. It's a web-based, and there's a few command line tools as well. So some of the tools are already there on the system. They have CyberChef. You can decode, decompress, and analyze some artifacts that come into play. They do allow you to quickly go from Base64 and Hex and some Hex Dump and lots of other tools. So log management. So in addition to having all the research or searching, you have the log management as well. They can tie into syslog, OS query, or syslog is the primarily Linux, Mac OS based. OS query is another open source product that allows you to. I think the site said it allows you to create SQL based search strings against the data. They have Elastic Beats. And these are third party or open source products that you can install on the end clients and push logs over. Auto runs, sysmon auto runs for Windows environments to push logs over. So working in the background for this security onion. So all of these components that are there, they're being worked individually as within Docker images. Depending on the mode that you choose during the install, some are going to be enabled or disabled. So you have the Elastic Stack, and within that, the Elasticsearch to allow you to do that search and analytics. We have Log Stash, and this is pulling in the data, ingesting, transforming it, put it into your favorite stash. You have Kibana as that web interface tool to get access to it. And there's definitely, there's a lot more going on. So some of the other tools is Curator. It's managing some of the indices and snapshots of the data. They have domain stats. So this one's performing whois lookups in the background to be able to give that a geo-based map IP of where the traffic is coming from. You have a last alert. So this is going to send the alerts after it detects something. Freak server for frequencies. It's detecting that high entropy where it shouldn't be. So with this new version, they introduced the salt stack to manage everything. So while there is a lot of components, everything is being done and managed rather seamlessly under the hood. This was new in Security Onion 2. So these components here are new, or Salt was new as well. I probably should have dropped that down there. So there's the Hive. This is a case management piece. So you can, as you're seeing different alerts, you can send them into the Hive, and it'll create that case for you to be able to start tracking things. Strekla, I'm not sure exactly what that is. Sigmund rules, not sure on that one. Grafana, this one does health monitoring and alerting. Fleet, this one's the OS query piece where it's managing that SQL SQL-based searching of log events. playbook. So this is a detection playbooks tool. So it allows you to create a detection playbook. I haven't looked at this one too much either yet, but it does tie into, I guess, sort of creating a, I guess like a workflow for what you plan on doing, and then being able to detect some of those things. They had this new hunt feature, so it allows you to search all your stuff, your NIDs and HIDs, Zeek logs, system logs, so all that's combined into the hunt. And this is where probably the heart of the analysis is going to be done. So they do this new security hunting console. And as for some other information, we have Redis. It's an in-memory data structure that's doing that message broker and is sitting between the log stashes. So at a high level, this is everything that's going on. Definitely a lot of tools, a lot of configuration for each of these components, and then this allows it to be able to detect all of those different and various components and combine everything in together. So as for a diagram, this is like a high level view, and this one is from the previous version. I did get a chance to update that to the latest. So it does use Docker. We have a lot of the Docker containers sitting there, a lot of communication between each of them. You can have a host that's sending information into or the OS logs and whatnot. You have Suricata pulling in all the NIDS alerts. Zeek, since it's been renamed, your Zeek is doing all logs there, and then syslog from the other stuff. So it's all coming into play, or all come together into log stash, and then Elastic Stack picks it up and does all the analysis, and it gives you a nice little tool to see all the data. So now you know what it is. The question is, where does it fit? So it at a high level, it's just a small piece of the puzzle. You would need to know, or at least understand, a lot of other tools, concepts, and skills. But before you were to actually start the installation, at least at a implementation stage anyway, you would definitely want to define the scope, goals, resources, or who's going to be doing what. Any legal requirements that are going to be associated with you or your company, because it could vary based on what you're doing. Remediation and tactics. So a lot of stuff would need to be at least discussed and planned on how it would definitely fit into your organization. But definitely having a CERT, the Computer Incident Response Team, dedicated to looking at these things is something that can definitely help potentially stop an attack. So some other things that should be considered. So this is directly with capturing traffic. So there might be some things that, so the previous disclosures and whatnot, those were more, probably would apply to everybody. So these are a little bit more specific, depending on what industry you're in. So the Graham-Leach-Biley Act, it potentially might help with some of the safeguard rules, maybe, or protecting that NPI. So the FTC, so a key thing in there was look out for certain warning signs. So potentially this could help with supporting that. So the PCI, there's various security controls that are going to be tied into PCI, and then this could fit that bill. So COPA, it aligns with the privacy policy. The Children Internet Protection Act could potentially help with incorporating that for the safety policy. The federal or the Family Educational Rights and Privacy. So this could be supporting the alerting on incidents, keywords. So for HIPAA, it could also help with parts of the security rule or considering the IR for the incident response. So the SOCs, it could also help with supporting internal controls over your financial reporting. So FSMA at the government level, it might support helping or help support incident response and FIPS compliance. Intellectual property laws like the DMCA, because it can look at content headers, session sizes, and whatnot, so it could support that. And then the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, they would support providing law enforcement information depending on if there was a criminal act that occurred on your network. That information could feed over into that government level. So CAN spam, this is another act, and it's it ensures people are responsible for detecting spam, so your network's not sending that out. So this could potentially help support that. And then I threw this in here. So data at rest. So in general, you definitely need to consider the data you're saving in these packet captures, and definitely make sure that the applicable security controls are applied. So definitely don't forget about that, because the data that you're capturing could be in clear text, and then that data may or may not contain information that needs to be encrypted or protected. So the question is, where would you actually put it? And so I broke this down into requirements, and then considerations, and integration thoughts, and then limitations. I'm not sure why limitations ended up over here on the right. So a requirement, so you will need a network interface dedicated to monitoring the traffic. Then depending on how the network is set up, you might need multiple. So consideration for placement. So Richard Beitlich, he discusses a lot of placement in various examples in his book that he has, and I'll be able to show that later, the picture. And he also goes into a lot of detail about putting it in front of the DMZ, internal networks, in front of wireless access points. He also talks about a lot of considerations with net and NPAT. So depending on as that traffic is converted over, you definitely need to, or would need to keep track of that information. That way you can do that connection during the incident response. So consideration with capturing traffic. So Chris Sanders, he has a couple books, but he also discusses various options. So promiscuous support. So you will need something that can be able to see the traffic on the wire. So a couple examples are TAP. You can have an aggregated or non-aggregated, depending on the number of ports coming into that device. You could use a hub. Definitely not ideal, depending on the network saturation that's there, but it is an option. So with switches, you have port mirroring or spanning, depending on your vendor, as for the terminology. He provides the example of ARP cache poisoning. Definitely not ideal in a long-term enterprise, but could be potentially used. The other option is you would install a client on the in-host. Definitely not as good, but it is available. So more than likely switches with the port spanning and mirroring, and the actual dedicated device are going to be probably the two primary methods of being able to see the traffic. So the Security Onion documentation, they also discuss various tap and span solutions. And this is that list here that they have in their documentation. So there's definitely a lot of hardware available to support that. So if you're setting this up in vSphere, I threw a couple of these in here because of the VMUG, but so you might need a couple different modifications depending, or in general, the notes that I have here, you might need to change depending on your configuration. So you are going to need promiscuous mode, so that checkbox, and you would need to allow it. So in the vSwitch, you're looking at this settings security. section, and then or for the port group, I'm sorry. And then the vSwitch, you're looking at settings, security, and this could depend on how you had that set up. So for VLANs, there are ways to limit that within vSphere. So that way you can either make sure that Security Onion sees what you want it to see, or filter that out so it's not capturing the traffic you don't want. Maybe the storage networks or whatnot, you may not want the capturing all that. So within the port groups, settings, properties, you can do one, none, or all. At least as far as I know, I wasn't able to get a range on the port group. On the distributed switch, though, I was able to see inclusive ranges, or at least test that out, like a common separated piece. And so that'd be at the distributed switch, and then the D port, or the distributed port group. It's inside settings, VLANs, and you can do an inclusive range as well. So a restriction is Security only supports x86-64. So it doesn't support ARM or PowerPC or even just x86. So it has to be the 64-bit. Consideration is so you might need a sensor for each ESXi host. So this would be tied to how you have the virtual switches set up. And there's a potential where you might need a dedicated NIC for that port mirroring with data or getting data in. So you might have a span port setting on your switch, and you might need a dedicated NIC on the ESXi host to pull that in if you were to have the monitors sitting in or as a virtual machine. So there's also a limitation with Docker images. So you don't want to suspend and resume the VM. That might cause some problems. So consideration point is Security Onion is not a prevention tool. But one good thing, though, is you would be able to take some of the rules that you are developing and some of the indicators of compromise and whatnot, and then push that over to other devices. So for me, I personally started with Pfsense, Snort on Pfsense, and so the downside, and this can prevent the traffic. Once it sees something, it can do blocking mode. But the only downfall is it only captures a handful of packets on the or immediately surrounding the event. So you don't really get a lot of information or the big picture. But it is definitely a good start. Okay, sorry about that. My computer kind of. Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can
Okay.
hear you.
Okay, sorry, my computer's acting kind of weird right now.
It happens when you present.
That looks like it. Maybe I need I don't know if it's time machine kicking off there or, but okay. So a consideration is requires monitoring and interaction. So this definitely isn't something that you can just set and forget. It's a network security monitoring device, not a network security set and forget environment, or I guess however you want to acronym that. But in general, this isn't going to be uncommon for any NIDs. You wouldn't be able to just buy any third-party product and plug and play. So consideration is it is memory and CPU heavy. The eval version, they recommend 2 CPU and 4 gig memory. Recommended is, or for the minimum, and then recommended is 4 CPU and 8 gig memory for recommended. So requirement consideration, so they say a minimum 200 gig. So it is rather storage heavy as well. And most of that comes from the Docker images that they're doing. So it does use the logical volume management, the LVM. So they do create two mount points and at a high level or during the installation is not configurable, but you would be able to make some changes after the fact. So they make root and /NSM, and for 200, and they do have an algorithm on how they place the data, but for a 200 gig disk, it puts 100 in each. So it does put Docker under root, under a varlib Docker. At a base, it needs 27 gig, but you would definitely want some more if you were doing a swing upgrade for the patching. That way, you can have both the previous version and the current running at the same time. So another consideration is you could just use Security Onion to forward logs to another device. So you could just use it as a intermediary point. They are building an AMI for the Amazon EC2 machine image to be able to monitor monitor the VPCs. So that is coming. So it might be something available here pretty soon. As for a limitation consideration, it doesn't provide support for remote storage. So they don't want sitting on NFS or iSCSI. So I'm not sure though if they allow or what they think about having the virtualized disk on remote storage, but that's sort of a given in general. So another consideration is your disk speeds. So as you're capturing this traffic and you have a maybe a 15 or 20 minute megabit link that, or at least activity. So you're going to need these disks to be able to write that data at that speed. So that would be a pretty big consideration. It does not support wireless interfaces at this time. So that's a limitation more than likely for people. So consideration, they recommend quality network cards. So Security Onion, they did disable the TCP and generic segmentation offload and the generic receive offload. So you don't need to consider that in your purchasing decision. So they do have a new thing for supporting air gap networks. So this is new, and they allow you to be able to patch the system in a network that doesn't have access to the internet. So that's a big plus. Another consideration is the VMware client tools aren't installed by default. So that would be something you'd have to do if you wanted them there. So Security Onion, it uses the UTC. And at a high level, it's a security or cybersecurity best practice, just so that all the logs are on the same format or time. The web interface tools are going to use the local browser's time zone, and then that's configurable so that you can view it in your time zone. Another consideration is you're probably going to want to look at changing the SSL certs from the self-signed ones. Limitation is you can't easily change the IP address. They have a couple experimental features, but so pick an IP address and stick with it. So I found this out recently. So when you're testing, ensure your capture interface is enabled. I had gone in there and I was playing around. I deselected my network connection for the VM, and it was having a lot of problems receiving some of the traffic. So definitely make sure that that's enabled. It probably doesn't need to go anywhere, but just make sure it's enabled. So the installation process is fairly straightforward. The hard part is definitely the planning, where to put it and how you can put it in place and how to use it. VMware VM, you're just going to look for a Linux, Ubuntu Linux, or probably even the CentOS one. I think I was using this based on the 1604, but they're fairly close anyway, but the 64-bit. So they offer various installed designs, and each one's going to be a little bit unique on your situation. So they have an evaluation, and let me push through. Okay, so you have evaluation, standalone, distributed, and then import, and then other. So evaluation is going to be that either a classroom or lab environment. They want 4 CPUs, 12 gig memory, 300 gig disks, and 2 NICs. Would be a good start. So standalone is going to be that better option for production. But the recommended way to do it is through this distributed approach. And this is going to break up the nodes. It has capture nodes, or a management node at the top, and then you're going to have storage nodes, and then you're going to have your capture nodes. That way you can break up the resource usage. So you can use the ISO, or you can use Ubuntu 14.04, CentOS 7, and then the install scripts. But the recommended way is the ISO. So after you boot it up, it's going to ask you a question for the partitions. You just type in yes and then enter. It's going to prompt you for creating a user account for the OS. It'll install the OS and then reboot. As soon as you log in, the one that you created previously here, the setup's going to run automatically. And this is where you get to select either eval, standalone, distributed, standalone, or other. So the one that I'm doing here is based on the eval type. You can select either standard or air gap for the network. You get to configure the host name. I pick SO presentation 2. You select your management network interface. You can do static or DHCP. And then you select your monitoring interface. They have an option for configuring the OS patching schedule. You can do auto every 8 hours, manual, or importing a schedule. The next thing you do is configure the home net network, and the defaults are the 1918 RFC, so the 192.168, the 1010, or the 1000, and then the 172. And then you select the services that you want to enable. And then they have this list of the Grafana for the monitoring, the Fleet with OS Query, Wazoo for that bringing in the HIDs from the end devices, the Hive for that case management, Playbook for being able to detect new items and integrating the IOCs, the Strekla, which I don't know much about. So you get the option to keeping the Docker IP range, or if you want something specific, you can do that. You get to create the admin for the web interface, and it does use an email format, and then that ties into all the other applications. You choose if you want to access or how you want to access the web interface, either IP hostname or other, and this is for that cookie enforcement. They don't like $signs in the passwords. And then it gives you the option to run this SO allow, and this allows and this configures the firewall so that you can access the web interface. So at least initially out of the box, it does not have a StartX or the X server. So it's just going to be a command line interface, and then you come in over web browser on another machine. And as for that firewall rule, you can either use an IP or the CIDR notation. You give it a final yes or no, and then that finishes it off. So at least for this eval mode and for the demo, these are the other things that I did since, and I guess this was mainly for if I were to, if anybody wants the presentation, they can run through the notes and then at least get it up to the point where I'm at today. So I did create a local client OS entry in my host, or on my local host. And that was initially so I can come in over the web browser. So I installed the analyst tools, and you do this through sudo so analyst install, and this throws on X server, GNOME, Chromium, Wireshark, and Network Miner. So I adjusted the display settings, and so this new version, it does not come with samples that, or at least I wasn't able to find them. But the previous version, they have had samples inside or within the ISO. So I run through some steps here on how you can get those in if you wanted to, I guess, try or practice or play with the demo that we're having later. So if you go and get the previous ISO, the 1604, you mount that up, and or just mount it up to the /media, and then make a directory. It doesn't really matter where it is, but I did mount temp. And then you're going to want to mount with T or type squash fs, and this is the path to where it's going to be, and this is going to be relative to your CD-ROM. So there's a file system.squashfs. Once you have that mounted, and this is going to be you would be able to go into that folder, and the one that I'm targeting for the demo, this mark OFU folder. So I'm going to create the op samples folder, and then copy everything over, go up to the root, and then unmount everything. I created 2 files as backups in case the demo runs into time constraints, and I copied the presentation to this machine, so I was only sharing one session. As for some additional items to get started, you would so at a high level, after you do all the installs, if you do a distributed setup, you're going to want to set up or update the master one first, and then they have a command sudo soup, and then you would update the remainder nodes. You would want to make sure the NTP is all set up and good, and configure any firewall rules that you would need, and that should wrap up getting everything installed. So this was a quick slide over what or how I had it set up with the 1604. When I was playing around with some testing, I set up 3 nodes, management, 4 CPU, and so these are all with this is a processor 2.2 gigahertz. So this was sitting at about a 400 megahertz. Just for the most part, it was just sitting idle. Or it's doing a lot of work in the background, but at idle, it was using about 400 megahertz. I put 200 gig on each. Some of this is going to be already done for you, at least initially anyway, with the newer version. So the search node, it was previously known as a storage node, but with the storage node, it was running about 650 megahertz. And the forward node was using quite a bit, 1.5 gigahertz. So it definitely is resource heavy, but with that distributed environment, you can add additional nodes as necessary to be able to spread that workload around. So this is a table of what I have. So home networks 150, 150, and this is just with the family using basic stuff. So the storage definitely did creep up. So depending on storage or network usage, this is definitely going to change. So it might be that you're only capturing a couple weeks of traffic, or it could be a couple months. So the storage also increased in storage or usage, definitely not as much as the actual packet captures. And then the management node incremented, but definitely not a lot. So keeping in mind, so there's a few things to at least keep in mind as you're setting everything up and what's available. So there's a lot of specific tools. So the SO family, we talked about the SO allow already, but there's 156 of them. So quite a few. More than likely, a lot of them are for internal stuff, but you might be able to leverage it if you're trying to do that. A big one is SO status. It'll give you a status of everything on the system. If you want to create a new user, SO user, or I'm sorry, resetting your password, SO user update, and then the user. If you want to add a user, SO user add. You can list users to see who has access, and definitely a lot more on starting and stopping services and whatnot. So mostly everything starts with SO. If you want to add OS users, sudo add user and then username. This is just based on the Linux distribution. It does support email alerts, and so there's this thing Bpf. This is the Berkeley packet filter. So it does get intertwined with a few libraries, And so the files here are in opt, so salt stack, and then this is going to push everything out. So you set it up, you set it one time on the management host, and then push it all out. So these filters, you can apply it to stenographer. So just the packet capture, Cotter for the rules, and then Zeek. So each of these three are the big three, and these filters can filter out different networks if you don't want to see that particular network, or if you don't want to see a particular type of traffic. Maybe you don't want to see or record anything on 443, or if there's a maybe there's a video, maybe a video service is being used, and you don't want to be able to, or you don't want to waste storage or whatnot. So you can exclude things as necessary. So there's a few requirements. So it does use this the YAML, yet another markup language, and so a few times in a few places you might need double quotes, depending on reserved characters. So keep that in mind. As you're building these rule lists for exclusions or inclusions rather, or either or, you're going to want the and except for the last entry. So it's similar to building shell commands with the slash at the end. So some of the options that you have, if you're wanting to filter based off MAC address, you have ether, host, and then the MAC address. You can filter based off IP, so host and then the IP. The network, you can filter based off that, specific protocols, specific TCP ports or UDP even. So VLANs, there's a rule or a trick or a requirement, a requirement that you have to duplicate the filter. So there's some uniqueness with the VLANs. But one thing that I wasn't entirely sure of that I'm still kind of researching is the VLANs apparently don't work right now with Zeek or Stenographer. So I did previously work in the previous versions of Security Onion using the NetSniff, but so I'm not sure exactly what is available right now with the VLANs, but there is definitely additional reading available if you're interested in that. You can negate any of these with an exclamation point. So if you want everything but a particular IP address, that's an option. And definitely lots more. So the Bpf filters, I mean, there's a lot going on there. So a lot of options to be able to filter that traffic. So the NIDS rule sets, you have the emerging threats, and these are open and free. You have the emerging threats pro, and these aren't free. And then you have the Snort community, which are free. So there's a few rule sets that you have access to. And there's also registered. And this one's free, but it's 30 days behind. So depending on how emerging or how current you want to stay, that may or may not be an option or available. And then you can subscribe to Snort for rule sets. I know for personal use, I think it's like $30 a year, give or take. And then it gets a little bit higher for commercial use. So as you're building these, or if you want any custom alert or NIDS, there's an option for that. And then this one here, this is the older version. So I guess I need to clean that up. Sorry about that. So as you do add additional alerts, you would run the sudo role update. And there's another tool that you can use for testing, Scapy. And inside the documentation for Security Onion, there's a tools section that goes over a lot of the tools that are available on the appliance. So for Zeek, it's going to dump all these in NSM Zeek logs. And as for other utilities, there's JQ, and this is like a sed awk grep for JSON files. You have so allow for managing the firewall, and you can import packet captures for if you're testing something, or if you have an isolated system and you're doing an incident response and you want to import those packet captures, you have that option as well. And the so import PCAP, it does keep the timestamps that are on the original PCAPs, so that's a potential benefit of using that. And then you can configure Zeek through SO Zeek logs. And there's also other indicators of compromise that you're able to configure. So there's definitely a lot of things that you can do to make it unique for the organization and make it fit better. So here's some of the books that the presentation uses. So this is the Richard Baitlick's book, Leveraging with the Practice of Network Security Monitoring. Chris Sanders' Practical Packet Analysis. He goes in a lot of good details over where to put it and whatnot. This is Sherry Davidoff and Jonathan Ham's Network Forensics. And they provide a lot of examples on being able to, or how to look at network traffic. A lot of the law stuff came from Joanna Grandma's legal issues. This incident response talks a lot about building that response team and integrating that into your organization. The Metasploit book it's really good. It talks about how to leverage Metasploit so you could use that for testing, making sure that everything is working as intended. And then this one here, Practical Malware Analysis. This one is really good, and it gives you a nice foundation on how malware is built, used, and how you can detect it better. Another suggestion is reading the Security Onion documentation, and they do have some YouTube videos as well. So Doug Burks goes into a lot more detail on how to actually use Security Onion really well, and how to leverage the new tools. So as a primer for the demo, you have IP protocols in general. So these are, at least in the network packet itself, they're going to be numbered, or they have a identification. So 1 is ICMP based, 6 is TCP, 17 is UDP, GRE is 47, and then I'll just push through those. So each of these types of network protocols are going to be using a different identifier. So depending on what you're trying to capture, this is where that Bpf can come into play. You can only, or you could set a filter where it only looks at TCP, or maybe you're interested in the ESP, or for like IPsec tunnels and whatnot, or depending on what you're looking for, you can either include or exclude. So Snort and Suricata, primarily Suricata with a new version, because Snort been pushed out. So some of these rules are coming from Source Files vulnerability research team. So the way they have these rules set up, anything between 0 and 1 is reserved for that particular team. 1 to 2 million is for the open source community, and then anything above 2 million is reserved for custom rules. So in general, as you're playing with these rules, you would definitely want to copy the original so you can go back to it. And there's also discussions on disabling the rule in general and then moving it over into a custom, because if that rule is updated in the future, as that update comes, it's going to overwrite what you just did. So these rules, they're fairly simple, and they can get very complex really quick. But at a high level, you have alert within. There's a way to block if it's a prevention, or if it's set up in blocking mode. But for Security Onion, it's just alert. So you have alert. So what you want to do, and then what you're looking for. So you can put the protocol here, This could be TCP or UDP. And then you're going to have the source IP and source port. So for this example, just any, so anything. And you might see potentially those identifiers of like home net, so a source of home net or external net. And this was during the install as to why they were asking for home net. And then if you wanted a rule on going to any IP on 443, so this would be a website test. So the message, this is what it would show in your alert. And then you can classify the type of activity. This is your identifier. So it's in that 2 million category for the custom rule. And then you can put a revision number on it. So, that way you can increment the number and keep track of the version that you're on. So this header here has seven fields. That's your action, protocol, source IP, source port, and the destination port. And this dash greater than is the destination. So you can either alert, log, or drop, except for Security Onion. But at a high level, the way the rules are set up, you can do TCP, UDP, IP. These are those custom names that you can use, or I guess environment variables that get set up. The direction you can do either one-way or bidirectional. And then the body here is so there are semicolons that are going to separate each of these options here. Your metadata, you have message, and the reference. So you can add a reference as well if you want to add some notes as to why you built the rule. So you can look for inside the packet as you're searching the packet. So as this opens up the packet, looks at the data, you can look at it either ASCII based or you can also use hex. And it does use the PCRE for creating those expressions, those search expressions. Some of the options that you can do after you detect something, you can do packet logging and capturing, and response actions for like a reset. So I mentioned this, I'm sorry, before creating the rules. Okay, so sorry. If you are deciding that you need a rule for something, you would probably be best by oh, sorry about that. I think it froze again. So you definitely want to make sure that if a rule already exists before you start building something. So that's definitely beneficial. Okay, and so here's a diagram of what everything looks like. So you have your analyst machine, and you're coming in over SSH or a browser, and you're hitting this Security Onion console. You have access to all of these tools here, the Hunt interface, the PCAPs, Grafana, Fleet. In the background, you have these tools running. And then there's a few more, Playbook, CyberChef. So this is a visual representation of what it looks like. And I guess if there aren't any questions, or if there's any questions, we can do them now or kick into the demo.
Yeah, I had a quick question. You had mentioned the size. Is there a way for it to do auto log rotation? So say you wanted to hold data you'd captured for a period of time and then rotate that away to allow it to continue, or do you need to manually purge that?
So it does have a way. It does have a way to automatically purge. As for if you want to keep the data, I don't know if it has that option. You might need to siphon that off if it was falling off. But they do have some things in play that set at 90% or after 90%, it'll start deleting data.
Okay.
And So for the demo, it does start just directly after installing from the ISO. So the packet capture examples that I'll be running through kind of quickly, they're just going to show some of the highlights. That way, I don't want to spoil some of the case studies that are there. Then there's definitely various ways to approach it, depending on what you're doing. The big thing is just understanding the data. So the first thing is going to be looking at the console and looking at the status to the command line, and then transitioning over to Suricata for creating a quick rule, and then importing some of the packet captures. And these packet captures do come from LMG's Network Forensic Puzzle Contest, and they're the authors of the Network Forensics book. And through their book, they provide a lot of explanations on how to do or how to go into, or a lot more detail on going through this or the packet captures. So for the first part, just so you can do sudo so status, and it prints out a lot of stuff. So there's a lot of stuff going on in the background. And then the other thing I was going to show was sudo docker. So there's definitely a lot of containers going. Right now, 33 with eval mode, and a lot of the Cabana, Playbooks, Zeek. So each of these are running on their own container. And then as for the interface, actually I was going to show creating a user as well. So if you needed to add a user, just sudo so user add, and then the name of the person, or user rather. And this is that self-signed cert that they give you out of the box. This is that default, or at least homepage. They talk about a lot of the things that are available down there. This top bar here, navigation bar, their core items are here. The alerts, and this is going to show alerts that are recent based on the search criteria. This is their hunt interface. It gives a lot of options to be able to grouping by things, and we'll definitely go into a little bit more using some of these features here in a few minutes. You have an option of looking at the packet captures, so they push it over here, and then you can view them there. Grid lets you look at all the servers that are in your infrastructure for Security Onion, and then seeing the status. They have options for pulling some of the tools down in the downloads, and then administration, you can do users. And then they have the shortcuts here for Cabana, and then the Grafana here. This gives you that visual representation. It does have eval mode up here. I'm not sure if that's like a different cost or not. for more support. The Cypress Chef lets you do that Base64 hex decoding, so you can look at that. Some of those tool sets are right there, so you don't have to jump into the command line. And we have the playbook, and there's quite a few things that are there already within the community. Fleet is looking at that OS query part. There's nothing set up right now, so. The Hive is that case management study. So you would be able to push things over into the Hive. And then the navigator. I'm not exactly sure how this plays into this, but the AT&T and CK. But it's looking at giving you some information on going further into the research for the incidents or for the incident. So the next quick thing I was going to touch on was the building the Cotter rules. Let me scroll up. So this file here is going to let you create those rules. And I'll just cheat and jump in the root here. And then it would be ideal to make a backup. Now there's nothing in here, but definitely good practice. So the rule or that I was going to create is just going to be very simple. So just alert on anything TCP from any IP port, IP import, when the destination is any IP import. It's going to show the message of a test1 in the console. And so what it's looking for is when it sees test ASDF in the payload, it's going to alert. No case means that it's not going to be case sensitive. And then for a SID, something over 2 million and revision of 1. And so from here, the next thing is to run this sudo salt, so salt call, and then state, high state. This is going to refresh, or this is going to be the salt piece that's going to push this rule down to the Cotter piece. And this is going to take about 2 minutes. So while that's going in the background, we can create the test packet that we're going to use to trigger the alert. And that's where we can use Scapy. So you type in packet or PKT, and the name can be, I guess, for that piece, whatever you want. We're going to be building an Ethernet packet based IP, and the destination really doesn't matter. And this will be a TCP because that matches our rule that we made. And then we're going to add the payload into the packet, and then we're going to write the PCAP to the file name test1 PCAP, and we're going to be writing PKT, which is this variable that we created earlier, and then we exit with the double parentheses. So this is the file we just created. And then, so this guy's still going. It should be down here in a couple seconds. So to look at your packet capture, you can use TCP Dump. The -X is going to give that packet link level headers, and along with headers and data. And this is going to be in hex and ASCII. So this is that, and as for if you wanted to get the MAC addresses and whatnot layer for that lower level, this is going to be the MAC address information here, and then IP starts at the 4500, which is this guy, and then you have your TCP portion of the packet, and then the payload itself sitting back here. So this is probably the longest part of the piece. So while that's going, the next part of the demo is going to be with Wireshark, so I can go ahead and get that started. Okay, so this just finished. So the next part, so once the main piece has been done for the salt, it would be SO or SO rule update. So this is going to tell Cotter to look at the rules that are updated. Once it has the new rule that you created, then we can now import the packet capture. So it's pulling in the file. It does give it a unique identifier so that if you were to put the same packet capture in, it wouldn't redo it. It's going to look through Cotter for those rule-driven alerts that we just created. So Zeek is the other one, and this is looking at the analysis. So it's going to look at the packets and see if there's anything weird with the packets, and then report. So going back into Security Onion. If everything worked well, we should see this alert just show up. But it does take, sometimes it does take up to, well, they say 30 seconds for everything to show up. They do give this hyperlink that you can use, and then this filters this creates that filter so that you can find it quicker. So based on this, Zeek did pick some stuff up. As for Cotter, it did not. So I need to. So we did run the rule and the update. So it should have, unless I mistyped something. Okay, so I'm not sure why I didn't pull up the alert here yet. But if it did work successfully anyway. Yeah, maybe I messed up on the rule, but it would have dropped a additional item here in the event module. It would have been Cotter, and would have listed the packet as a problem. But as for Zeek, so Zeek did notice some other weird or some things going on. So it has a connection log, so it's going to log that. It has a notice and then a weird. So inside each of these, within the search criteria, this top section here, you can select any of these items and then do an include, exclude, or if you only wanted that particular module in this case, you can also do based on the data sets over here. You can put these in the clipboard. You can change the groups. And a lot of these filters are configurable up here at the top. You have a date range if you want it to automatically refresh. And then getting down into the alert, you have a lot of fields and information to look at. For this one here, it was this is the weird log, and what this one saw, it should be in here, but it's going to show that it wasn't expecting a payload within that type of packet. So this was a TCP Send packet, but it also included some data, which was that test ASTF that we added. So this is why this one got flagged. So Zeek can do a lot more. I mean, it can look at that DNS and SMTP, and then look for those things that are abnormal. So for this first example, and so I just put 3 quick ones in here. So looking at Wireshark and Network Miner. This is the network forensic puzzle number 2, and inside the forensic book is chapter 4. So this one doesn't trigger any NIDS alerts. This one just talks about some of the background tools that are available. The packet capture is this network forensics number 2. So starting off in Wireshark. Going to the samples network 2. So at a high level with Wireshark, you have the packets that are shown are the ones that are captured up at the top. As you select them, you get the detailed packet information here in the middle, and then at the bottom, you have the packet in ASCII format or ASCII and hex format. So for this one here, you can do filters within Wireshark. You can filter on either IP address or the protocol. You do have profiles that you can create if you wanted to sort or add different criteria. So at a high level, we have some of the ARP traffic here, and net or the net BIOS. There's just traffic going on up the top. The NTP, some more ARP requests. You see DNS. Somebody's looking to query smtpcs.com. Within each of these fields, you can do additional searches. Some of the ones that I typically add are the IP, the source and destination are here, but I'm sorry, I'm looking for the field. But definitely adding some additional columns allows you to do that additional research in the background. I'm drawing up. I was looking for one of the columns, but it's not showing up right now, or from what I'm seeing. But in this packet capture here, this example, it's primarily this SMTP traffic here that the example was looking at, and some additional things that you can look at when you do open up the packet capture is you can look at the summary, so you can see how many packets are there, and then how much time elapsed for that packet set. You can look at the protocol hierarchy, so you can see what's going on inside. So we know everything here is IPv4. There's some TCP and UDP, but primarily it's all TCP. And then when you get inside TCP, it's primarily, so 43% of it is SMTP. So based on this, looking at SMTP is probably the most focus. You can definitely right click. You can add as filters. So if you wanted to see that one particular IP address or protocol, you can add these as filters. The other option is using the follow TCP stream. So this one allows you to add the stream, and that was one of the ones that I was wanting to add as a additional filter. Stream index. So this inside TCP, you have a stream, or the stream index. So you can apply this as a column. So now you have information here to know that each of these different packets are tied to that one specific stream. So as you move down, you'll see stream. The previous one was 0. This one's a 1. So these are different conversations that are occurring within that communication. So primarily everything was just those two conversations. If you want to filter, you can right click and follow the stream. And this gives you a nice printout of everything that's going on in the packet. So the blue is from the source, and the red is from the yes. So I'm sorry. The blue is from the destination, and then the red is from the source. So this is coming back from the mail server here. So all this information here, you can see that somebody's trying to send the okay, sorry, my computer was freezing again. So you can see that somebody was sending an email. They were from this sneaky 33K at AOL, sending to this Mr. Secret at AOL. You can see it's a multi-part email. Maybe Outlook Express is the client. Primarily text plain, but they also have an HTML portion to it. They have some information on what they were typing in the email itself. And then down here we have a encoded portion of the it's a Base64 encoded portion of the email, and then they have a name of a secret rendezvous for the doc. So based on all this, there's a lot of options. You can export this out. You can and then chop this up and then rebuild this document. So Wireshark provides a lot of good stuff with that. The other one that's available is this network miner. So this one goes a little bit further into it looks at the packets and then gives you a nice layout of everything. So you don't necessarily have to dig as much into to get the information that you're looking for. So hosts, it gives you all the hosts that are in that capture. it goes ahead and pulls out all these files for you. So you don't have to do the export and then inside Wireshark. That's if it breaks out into these different categories here. If it finds any credentials, it pulls those out. So here we have somebody's password because it was sent over non-SSL SMTP sessions again, DNS queries. So Network Miner, definitely another good tool to be able to look at that data. And so you definitely can change some of the columns and filters. So as for the self filters, I guess an example is if you wanted to look at the IP address 64. What's an equal sign? Sorry. Or let me do it the easy way. Okay, sorry. The two equal signs for the equal. So you can do source, or you can do the address. So this will pull it in for either of them, either source or destination. And there should be a way to build these expressions through the expression here. So you can look through this, and then if you were trying to find something specific that you wanted, you can use this expression list. So it'll build this for you if you were looking for that specific traffic. So Wireshark definitely has a lot of ways to do that filtering, and that you can also carve this some of that files out manually by copy pasting the text and then using Base64 clients to dump that out, or Network Miner as another option. So the next one is going to be the number 4. And this one was going to be an import. And then I know we're kind of running a little bit long, so I'll kick off the next one for number 5 as well. And then we can probably combine 4 and 5 in together. So for CyberChef, we touched on that one briefly, but it does have some of those nice tools built in, so you're not having to go to the command line. And within each of these fields, within the alert or hunt, you can definitely pivot around based on the alert ID or the community or the network ID or the network community ID. So for this first one here, so this is an example of of a TCP Send Attack. And so once you have the filter criteria, and these are definitely older packets, so from 2010. So Zeek picked up some stuff, and it looks like the Curator, I might have broken something with the rule that I created earlier. For the example. Well, actually, no, I did show here. So there's one. So we have 34 Curatas here. It's just that the amount is definitely a lot smaller than the Zeek. So Zeek saw a lot of connections. So Curator had a lot of alerts. And this is where you can pivot depending on if you only want to see the Curator. Up at the top, it's adding that additional text in. Down here, you can see the alerts themselves. So somebody's doing these TCP send packet scans on a wide range of ports. So this could be something that you would want to investigate if this wasn't a sanctioned scan. And then again, you can look at the a lot of the data here, where it came from, and some other information on the timestamp. This is part of the actual signature that was used during that capture. So it's looking for it's got the external net here. So any IP externally coming in on any port going to any of your internal network on this particular port, it's going to detect that as a suspicious scan on for that. And you can pivot based on the rule names. If you wanted to look at everything with that one particular rule, maybe there was other people that were also scanning on that IP. So as for the last example here, this is just another example of Zeek and Curator picking up these alerts, seeing the traffic, and Zeek here created a few DNS inside that, and then depending on the traffic that you're expecting, something could be more interesting than others. For example, if you're not using any HTTP traffic, that might be something that you would want to look at. And so this is just an example of and these are the log IDs here, and you're able to pivot on those. And then from here, you might be able to see a more closer or a smaller subset of all the traffic. So I think that wraps everything up. A little bit longer than I guess I was originally thinking. So sorry about that. I guess are there any questions?
I haven't heard any. Do you have any? Unmute yourself. Ask away. Grant looks like he has a question.
I don't have any questions. This is a very thorough presentation. Are you gonna have any of your documentation up on like a GitHub or any type of repo we can pull it down from?
I can. I don't really have a I guess a GitHub page, but I can send this out either HTML format or the Markdown if you wanted the Markdown format.
Either one. You can just send it to me over Slack if you want. I don't have to have it on a GitHub page or anything.
Okay.
I think mine is more of a comment / question where this looks like it's a lot to get going, and it's also looking like a lot to maintain. So I guess my question is, how realistic is it to set up something like this for a smaller company, you know, versus like a solution like, I know it's not the same, but like Cisco Stealth Watch, where it can kind of do heuristic based analysis of network traffic on your network and, you know, just be a little bit more generic, I guess. But we go that route because we're a smaller team versus something like this, where it looks like it would require someone kind of dedicated to it. I guess, where do you see this fitting in size-wise of a company?
So it can definitely support, I mean, both small and large. I mean, I don't know if there's like a size limitation on either way. As for the intervention part, it is definitely involved. Security Onion does offer some services. I think they offer some appliances as well. And so they do offer some hardware and support for that. I haven't really looked into what they offer. They have training as well. But as for the day-to-day, it would be involved. I mean, you would need somebody that would be able to at least look at it, to review the alerts, make sure the storage was good and available, make sure that it's set up in a way that it's capturing the traffic. And but as for the other option that you mentioned, the Cisco one, I haven't used that one specifically, or actually anything else. I mean, I've only really used this at a like educational home use. But I don't know if their device would be completely set and forget either. I don't know if you're paying for services at that point for Cisco to
Yeah.
push you alerts and then monitor.
I mean, I was just more talking as a generic example of, you know, X vendor fills gap here that we may have, where that would take us away from some issues where I could see like a self-managed solution like this would bring to the table. So I did forget your comment there of like only using this on a home lab level. And so I was doing some Googling around just to kind of see what other people's opinions were on it. And it did look like it takes a lot per day. So I guess it would just have to be a business decision on, you know, do we hire a full-time person to manage a piece of software like this? So
That's probably where it would go. I mean, it would be, you know, do you hire somebody to look at it and monitor, maintain, and manage and update, and or are you buying that service from some like a third party, like that managed service provider, or just Cisco remotes in occasionally and looks at stuff and then sends you stuff that you may think, or that they may think that could be beneficial. But a potential bonus, if somebody that internally doing it, they may know your data better than some other company, but that might be more money in the long run, depending on the size and what you're trying to manage and monitor.
And I think to his point, this is like the similar discussion I think we had when we discussed doing Zabbix versus a paid solution like EG Innovations. You know, is it a, you know, I use Security Onion in college, and it is a great solution, and you can do a lot with it, but you do have to babysit it. You do have to, you know, give it a certain amount of grooming, and you have to know what you're looking at and what you're looking for. Whereas setting up, you know, like Snort or something like that, they have a lot of, you know, default alerts and stuff in there, but that's also going to generate a lot of white noise. You know, we found like going through our
crazy powerful for sure.
Yeah, going through our monitoring solution, we had an idea what we wanted to monitor, but we didn't know how we wanted to monitor it or how to display that data or how we wanted to do it. So we determined, you know, instead of building out a giant Zabbix deployment, we ended up buying a solution because a lot of that stuff was pre-built for us.
I mean, it's probably similar to like the VMware. I mean, I think somebody in the group, you know, they purchased that that whole stack from Dell. I think it was Dell anyway. But
You're
you-
probably
We've been-
thinking of us.
But there's that option too. I mean, but it's always going to be that case though, where you can either just buy something pre-built from somebody else and implement, or
By the
just-
way, that was not the case. We very much ended up building it.
But there's always that. I mean, for everything, it's going to be the same thing. I mean, are you going
Yeah.
to push it to the cloud, or have stuff on site? Are you going to manage email on site, or pay
Sure.
for the change administrator, or just do 3?
No, yeah, I think you answered my question though. Of size, it's
I mean, it is tough. I mean, it's not a. I mean, I've
yeah,
been playing with.
it's one of those things where we would want something like this. That it's capturing a lot, it's correlating a lot. We can build powerful tools, and like we've purchased things like that in the past. We had a SIM at one point, Alien Vault, if anyone's familiar with that, and it's just like we quickly found out what kind of overhead managing that kind of tool takes, and it's hard because you're then caught between budget and need and want of the company / what IT wants.
I mean, so that one setup that I did for my for home and internal use anyway. I mean, I set it up and was running it. There were definitely there was a lot of white noise, like Justin was saying. But some of those are configurable. You might be able to just start off with I mean, if you did implement something like that and it was a low budget type project, it would probably be good to strip down all of the alerts, just so you're doing like only the really, really, really bad stuff. And then as you're more and more familiar with it, then add to that, or maybe focus on as there's one particular malware that's out there and using, or it's something that's hot, then maybe add that alert. But definitely throwing it all out there and turning it on, it's definitely going to capture a lot of traffic and send a lot of alerts.
All right. Any other questions? Looks like Doran put some information in the chat. So maybe something worth looking into. All right, thanks, Nicholas, for presenting. This is some good information and a lot to take in. So, all right, we do have some drawings or some prizes, and it looks like a few have dropped off, so that makes your chances even better. Yeah, we'll see where we start. Let me go ahead and share out my screen. I have some pickers that will help us do this. How do they do the one where you can't show a whole screen? Is that Zoom that does that?
You can just pick a window in Zoom.
Can we determine, is Ben's headphones actually pink, or is it just the room reflection? Because he tells me that they're not pink.
They don't look pink on my screen.
They don't look pink on my
They're
screen.
gray.
Oh,
I'm glad you guys are seeing it.
You're just colorblind, man.
Well, I was going to say the whole room.
I was
is
wondering who's
pink,
going to point it
so-
out.
Do you have your night filter turned on so it's starting to change the color of your screen?
No, I'm actually colorblind, so it just looked pink to me.
Yeah, I don't have the option on here to share a screen. I have to just share an app. Let me, and of course I have two different windows I want to pull up. All right, so I'll just pull up the one with the people, and I'll run the other one just offline, or not offline, but not on the share. That's just weird that they would not have a window option. I don't know, maybe something to do with VMware, how they have it set up for VMUG. All right. So assume you guys were able to see the little picker. Okay. Yeah, right. This should be everyone who is on most of the time. So we'll see what we start with here. We have 9 items, I believe, to give away. So, hey, the presenter himself. All right, so I'm going to spin the other one, see what you get. There's, I know it's not on the screen, but. The Vmug Hat. So you get this. So I don't know if you can see it. There you go. Put it behind the light, in front of the light.
Nice.
As far as getting these, if you live in the Fort Wayne area or somewhere in Ohio close to Justin, we can probably make arrangements to get them, like drop them off. Otherwise, just if you want to provide me your address, I can send it to you. That would be more preferred. All right, you know, I have a spreadsheet too. I need to put these on so I remember who gets what. Hat. All right. All right. Let's see who's next. Must be the first name, Nicholas Lloyd. All right, what we get here. VMware mug.
Put it down.
It's starting with the little things. Yeah, so this one's unwrapping. Bubble wrap. So black VMUG mug. VMUG mug. Yeah, doesn't like being redundant there, right? All right. And choice. Jeremy, you get a, oh no, we'll see. So now it's getting, I have some big stuff in here, and so it picks the 2 smallest items first. All right, the VMware backpack cooler. So I have 2 of these, so we'll have another one to give away, but so that is so pretty neat. I actually hadn't taken it out of the package till now, but I saw it when I ordered it, so pretty neat. All right, where'd my spreadsheet go? Guess I need another monitor. All right.
You used to have 6 of them, so
Yeah, it's hard to go down. I'm only on 2 right now, so
Needs a
kinda,
7th.
well, I've been working off of 2, and then yeah, so I got a 36-inch monitor, and then so I got rid of some of the other ones.
Ah, nice. Was
Did
that
you
that
start
Dell one you
using
guys
those?
posted about a long time ago?
Yes. Then I've been using a 36-inch and a 27-inch. Right now I'm on my 15-inch laptop and the 27. So
Gotcha.
Need
I've
to
been
use
working
those,
off of VDI. So
Need to use those virtual desktops in Windows 10.
well, that's what I normally use, but for the Zoom call, I didn't want to use that because we don't have the full function client in there, which it seems like this one's not full function either. So, all right, Kent. Let's see what we got left here. All right, it's a VMware Lunch Bag Kit. So it's like a lunch bag, and inside here there's a yeah, like a it's not this mug, but it's a mug like this, but it's VMware. I didn't want to open it up, but and then there's, I don't know, 1 or 2 other things in there with that. So all right. John Houston.
I don't think John has ever lost a drawing.
I know, right?
Rigged.
All right, you receive a book, Shell of an Idea by Don Jones. And this is being donated by Bill Kendall. So we'll have to work out how to get those from Bill.
Yeah, I'll just drop it off to him at the office.
Oh, that's right. You guys
All
work
right.
with each other.
Yeah, he's my boss, so
It works out.
Yep.
All right.
Violates company policy. It's considered bribery.
I guess I could be running these at the same time. All right, Ben. It's the other book that's being donated. PowerShell for Sysadmins by Adam
Sweet.
Bertram.
That fits me.
it's a signed copy too.
Ooh.
And it's lived in my truck for like 3 months ago when Bill gave it to me. So
So it might smell like diesel now.
My son just muted me. It's like, Dad,
Good.
stop talking.
3 items left. JP.
Ooh, thank you.
And all right, so you get a set of VMware drinking glasses. So
Yeah,
that's
that I need more encouragement to drink.
right. So these are like old wine bottles that they turned into drinking glasses. That's
Very cool.
pretty neat.
Thank you.
All right. There's 2 more.
I'll have to meet up with Ben at Salsa Grill because that seems to be every time we meet up seems to be where it's at.
Might as well make it a geek lunch.
There you go.
Bill Kendall, you get the stadium blanket. So it's a VMware stadium blanket. So it's folds up. So it's nice and soft. Well, one side's soft, the other side not so soft, but it's probably waterproof. So, all right. And we got 1 more cooler, so I don't need to spin that side. Well, it might be fun to just watch it spin itself. Not really. Oh, Tim almost got it. Doran. Another VMware backpack cooler.
Cool, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, these are pretty neat. They like the top is like for not cold stuff. The bottom's the cooler. So
That's awesome. More VMware, stuff. It's I was like, they're asking, do you have stock in the company? As much crap I have from VMware. I was like, every time I go to VMworld, I actually buy stuff besides what they give you. So it's like, I'm like, what do you call that? The prophet is like, drink my Kool-Aid.
yeah, people ask me that about iGel because I got tons of iGel stuff everywhere. But
Oh yeah, right. You do like that stuff.
I'm
So-
50% convinced that you're on their payroll.
sometimes, yeah. So
So
sometimes I wonder.
where are you? I mean, do you want me to send you an email outside and I'll pick it up from someplace, or how you want to handle that?
Why don't we maybe email what your preference is? I don't mind driving around.
I
to
mean,
get things
whatever
off,
works
but
for you. I don't want to make it impose on you, so I'll drive wherever you're at.
that gets me out of the house.
Oh, well, I'll get you some
No.
booze or something. So, or
Wants
chocolate.
to drive
never
that new
mind.
truck of his.
Right? Any
Cool.
excuse is good.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, guys, for organizing this, and thanks for the speaker. That was actually a great talk.
Yep, very good. So, all right. Does anybody have anything they want to talk about? I know it's kind of getting late, but
I gotta duck out and put this one to bed.
All right.
He's starting to mash
Same,
keys.
same here. I think all the little kids are starting to scream.
Nicholas, thank you for the presentation. It was really well researched, it looks like, and you've done a lot of playing with it. That was very thorough.
Good
thanks,
job.
yeah.
Lots of info.
Yeah, sorry for going a little bit longer. I was trying to get it under that like hour and 10 mark, but
So if we want a copy of some of your slides, should we just email you, or how do you want to handle that? Not slides, whatever the HTML or whatever the markup file.
Yeah, so we have a couple options, Nicholas. We can either upload them to the community. There's a file repository we can use. VMUG has, or the Fort Wayne VMUG has a GitHub page we could put it on. So we got two options there, or we could distribute it through Slack if everybody's on our Slack. So there's a couple different ways. If the community site's probably the best because that's where it's accessible by everybody.
okay.
And the easiest thing is to, well, and this has also been recorded, so we'll also be putting it up on YouTube. So we could also attach it to that as well. So, but you do have the ability to upload files into the community. If you go to our webpage, yeah, you probably can see that screen, right? So if you go to our webpage, so fortwaynevmug.com, this takes us to our Fort Wayne community page. And here, let me get it off half my screen. It's okay, but you have the ability here. Oh, they logged me out. You do have to be signed in. There you go. So down here, you can create a library entry. That's where the files go. So just click that and then give it a title. Just a regular VMUG. Yeah, what it defaults to library. So, yeah, just grab a folder and the description. So then down at the bottom, it allows you to do your upload. No, sorry, the bottom is you have to select the type. So it's a standard file upload. Then the next screen is going to let you actually do the upload. So, or if you just want to get it to me, I can do it. So either way. Any other questions or comments or anything?
Nope. Thanks for putting this on.
All right.
It's nice seeing everybody again.
Thanks a lot.
Kind of.
Good seeing you guys. Have a good night, and we'll talk. Take care.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Later, guys.
Thanks again.
Have a great evening, everyone.
See ya.
You as well. All right, you ready for bed? Okay.